Welcome to CEO Conversations by ENG, a global community for builders and leaders where we sit down for real, unfiltered conversations with the people building the businesses and the people who keep them running. I'm your host, LaShawn Charles, founder of Entrepreneurs Networking Group, also known as ENG. Today's conversation is about longevity, reinvention, and what it actually takes to keep going when the journey doesn't always look the way you expected. Today, I'm joined by Giovanni Savo. Gio is a longtime entrepreneur with over 3 decades of experience across sales, operations, manufacturing, and finance. He's also a member and an industry expert of our ENG community. Gio, welcome to CEO Conversations. How are you doing today?
Thank you. You said 3 decades. I feel old. It's a, it's a
I mean,
long time.
that goes to show your level of experience. We're so glad to have you here. Like, I'm pretty sure today's conversation, it could go anywhere. So we'll see how we'll take it. But we welcome you and we thank you for it all. How I want to start off, I want us to go all the way back to the beginning. Who was Gio before entrepreneurship? Now, granted, I know 3 decades is a long time, but we want to start at the beginning and kind of go over your journey. So walk us through it.
You talking about like even before work, like as a kid and stuff? Were you think?
I take us all the way back, all the way back.
So I remember I was talking about this with my kids yesterday. I was a Boy Scout, and actually I think that had a big role because when you're in the woods as a kid, you got to have some responsibilities. You got to take, we would pack a couple days before, so you got to organize your things. So I think there was little pieces. Either I was good at it or that made me good at it. So a lot of responsibility as a kid, when you're, like I said, when you're in the woods, you got to cook, you have to take care of things. So I would say that's one of the big factors that I can always point back to is some of the experiences. We used to do budgeting. There's a funny story, but you'll laugh because you're young.
As a kid,
Yeah, let's say we would have to. So, you'd have a big group and then every group would separate into smaller groups. There's actually a really big lesson in here too. Like you'll see it come out. And let's say you were the leader. Well, you would collect $5 from every kid and then you'd have to go to the grocery store and buy the food for that week. Or for that weekend. So I remember being in the grocery store with a calculator going, okay, we bought bacon and we got this and we want to buy hot chocolate and trying to figure out a budget. But as 13-year-old, this is the cool part, and I'm a foodie, so you'll get a lot of food analogies. Our little group would eat the best of anybody because there wasn't like, baked beans in a can. Like we were like, what can we do with and optimize? So that's actually really, I never really put it into terms like that, but now it's like, how can we maximize this $25? And then how do we make it work so that this is a trick. So if anybody goes camping, you make bacon on the first day because you can use the bacon grease to light the fire later on during the weekend and stuff. So it's like that stuff. And then thinking like 13 years old, you enter the woods and then you leave a little different. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely something there along the journey, I would say.
Oh, that's awesome. What was the moment where you first realized that, and I don't know if it's early on or later or where in your life, but where was the moment where you realized that you were more entrepreneurial?
Okay, that's another young story. We were in a youth group and we were like, the priest said, hey, why don't you guys do like a bake sale or whatever the case may be? And I'm like, man, everybody does the same thing. It's always like, muffins. I'm like, what if we do like a pasta dinner? People are like, what's that? I'm like, I have no idea, but it sounds good. So yeah. We organized and we sold tickets. It was $20, I think it was, or whatever it was, for an after church lunch. And so we had like a couple hundred people like pay. And then so I was like, okay, I guess I was the resident Italian being in Miami. There wasn't a lot of Italian. So it's pasta falls on you. And we came up with this menu and we were going to do like 2 different types of pasta and Caesar salad. And so some of the youth group would go out, take orders, and I was running the kitchen, but it came back to like leadership and kind of when things got chaotic, because it always will, and kind of stepping up and just organizing. And it was so much fun. But I realized like that's not maybe it is typical or not typical, but I think when you're thrust into situations,
right,
you kind of find yourself. And I started realizing early on in life, like if there was a little bit of chaos, I did well in it. Not only manufactured, but I kind of realized like if I could take a step back, breathe, sometimes people react, but I was able to like think and slow things down which
Right.
worked well in business later on and just in life in general. But that always stood out to me because we were running a little business. I mean, it was a 1 day operation, but we made profit and we people were happy and we gave the church a lot of money that wouldn't have been like cookies and banana bread, things like that. So it was kind of cool.
When it comes to from that experience to when you finally, what year did you build your first business, or what year did you say, okay, I'm going to take entrepreneurship serious?
My dad started a company in 1990. So I was in New York and then we moved to Miami in 1990 when I was 16. So he started this business and we used to sell automotive paint and chemicals to body shops, which if you don't really think about, it's not a business you think about a lot, but if a car gets into an accident, outside of the parts, everything else is, or outside of mechanical, it's all construction. And so we were in that business. So at 16 and 17, I would just sweep the floors on the weekends. And I remember on Sundays, I would do the calculations. So like I would add up the receipts and we would do a deposit and stuff like that, pre-computer days. So I didn't start the company with him, but right about 22 years old, I was going to college and I kind of realized what I was learning in school and what I was learning in business were not the same, theory and reality. So we had the opportunity to buy one of our competitors, and I knew my dad couldn't handle it on his own. There was just we needed more manpower, and so I said to dad, I go, look, if I leave school, then I could run part of this. And he looked at me like I was crazy. My mom cried for like 3 weeks after because I was like the first kid to go to college, and I never finished. But my dad, for whatever reason, was always very. He's like, okay, let's go for it. He was always very like, if I had an idea, we would run with it. And then later on, when my brother joined, same thing. So I didn't start the business, but I think one of the pivotal moments was that when we were able to we bought one of our competitors out. So we grew pretty quick. And then we had done that. We did that 3 more times, maybe 2 more times in between. And then I opened up our second store on our own and then our third store. So I was more instrumental in the opening of those. But that piece was, it was confidence. It was seeing an opportunity. So right about 21, 22 years old was when that happened.
Got it. And you said it. You said the confidence level because the way it seems when you're telling your story, you had an idea, you tackled it, right? What advice would you give those entrepreneurs that maybe have certain ideas or who are visionaries but don't really know where to start? Because you had the confidence, like, but for those who don't, what would be your advice to them?
There's a lot to unpack there because part of it is you can't plan everything. There's just no way. There's too many uncertainties and things are going to change. So sometimes people plan it and they never start.
Mhm.
Other people just wing it, and that's not it. So there's a kind of a mix in the middle where you got to know some things. You have to be able to start knowing that there's going to be flexibility built into it, knowing that there's going to be some challenges that you haven't seen yet, but the journey will learn that because you can't predict everything. It's like kind of going, I'm going to go on a long road trip and I know every single turn, every single corner, every single car that's in front of me. You can't know that. You just know that it's going to happen. Somebody's going to
Right.
slow down, somebody's going to speed up. So when you kind of know that, when a challenge comes up, you're like, okay, I got this. Like I don't may not have all the answers, but I'm expecting it. So
Right.
there's this sweet spot where it's not over planning, it's not under planning, it's doing. But having a mentor or somebody that's done it before is key. It's key because, and this is the truth, sometimes the idea sucks. It's not a good idea. It's in the wrong market, wrong industry. And you may believe it, but somebody that's been there is going to tell you, no, there's where the major flaw is. We kind of didn't have that, but we saw what the industry was doing wrong. So we were running the business and we're like, if we did this, this, and this, it should be right. And we proved it to ourselves. So we kind of had some proof already. So here's the negative. If it didn't work, we would have lost a lot of money, clearly. So there's just give and take. But a lot of times when people don't have anything, any backup plan and they're going to go for it, you got to have somebody to talk to that's going to give you honest advice. I have cyber entrepreneurs and they'll bring an idea and I'm like, you haven't thought this out because, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but I'm like, I give you an example, like a true story. And as I'm talking, like if you're like, see if this sounds like you. So this lady, she's like, oh, I want to start doing t-shirts. Okay, great. Great. And I go, what's the goal? Because that's the key. Like the goal is, it's not just creating t-shirts. The goal is for a business to do something. She goes, I want to make 100 grand a year. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of volume of t-shirts. Okay. And then they go, what kind of t-shirts? And she goes, empowerment, like entrepreneur. I'm like, okay, that's a good market. But then she goes, for women. I go, okay. And then she said, minority women. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. You took the whole market of entrepreneurs, cut it in half, cut it again, cut it again. Now we're in this little sliver. And then I go, well, how much are the t-shirts going to sell for? And she goes, $50 each about. And I'm like, they're expensive. It's a sliver of the market. You want to make 100 grand a year. How many shirts do you have to do? Like, what's the cost? And as I started going through it, I'm like, the volume of shirts is going to be astronomical. And I go, I don't know if you can hit 100 grand. I don't see the math working right.
Yeah.
And then she puts her feet dug in the ground and she's like, no, my mom thinks it's a good idea. And I'm like, did your mom ever build a business? I go, no. I go, that's the wrong person to take advice from. It's not good or bad. It's just, it's like me giving you medical advice, but never being a doctor. I mean, it's not the person
Right.
to go to. So I'm like, well, then you have to do like, forgot the math, but I'm like, you have to do X amount of shirts per month. That's a lot. I'm like, you're not Calvin Klein. Like, this is a lot of shirts to do. And she kept doubling down and wouldn't, and it was more like, it's to prove a point to yourself, but it's not going to work. And so I think like, and then she wasn't honest with herself. This happened to me again with a guy in New Jersey that wanted to do like sell like a custom tobacco if you want for like pipes and for people who smoke marijuana, like they would roll it and whatever the case may be. But I'm like, interesting. I go, but is anybody else doing? Is like, no. Well, guess what happened? Like as we were talking, I'm like, no, you're missing some pieces here. He gets his market going. Somebody comes in, hires a famous rapper. The rapper drops 100 grand in marketing, killed him out of the market within months because he didn't have. So it's like I've marketed things before, and I kind of saw like flaws.
Right.
The problem is there's an ignorance or like this ego, like I got to get it right, and I'm like, well, maybe it's not. So your question was, what do you do when you start? You got to talk to somebody that's done something that can give you genuine advice. Could you imagine like going into a boxing ring and go, I'm going to box professionally and never talking to a trainer? Man, you're going to get hit with a left hook you didn't know existed before. So I think that's so important. And maybe multiple mentors, right? Because then when you're listening, there's certain truths that are going to be, there are certain real truths that are out there. And then they don't have to have your personal interest in you, meaning financially. It does help, but you also can't filter what they're saying out. You have to take an honest assessment of it. And
Right.
I will tell you all the advice, like not all the advice, but when I've gotten advice in life, when it comes to career stuff, I may not want to hear certain things. So I'll just sit there, take it. I kind of let it sink in like a coffee filter and I
Process
just
it.
go, yeah. And I go, like that person's not there to harm me. So then what am I missing? Where's the truth in this little nugget? And then it may take me time. And then I go, okay, that is real. Or maybe they're wrong. And I could honestly say why. But usually there's some angle that I haven't seen.
Mhm.
And so I would tell people that. That's such a big deal because certain times in business, you may only have one shot when if you're going to have to put a lot of money up for something, or, I had a major career change later in life. Man, if I didn't do this right, I wouldn't be here because sometimes you screw up, and there's no redo.
You hit some great points and it triggered a thought. It made me think about the why. I even came up with CEO conversations and, you and I have spoken about this before. In the days now with the advancement of technology, with social media, everyone just sees the success stories, the quick, fast stories on how to get rich in 20 days. You know what I mean? And that's not realistic. We have to be realistic with ourselves. So I think it's so important for me to bring entrepreneurs on from all across the world. And especially with you in your 3 decades of experience, you could tell those who are listening right now your journey. It's okay to fail because a lot of people would just start a business, fail, and then say, oh, well, this influencer was able to do it in 20 days. It must not be meant for me. Right. So,
Yeah. Look, there's no get rich quick. There's just not. And so here's the example.
mm,
I don't know the exact, I think it took when they build the sky, like let's say the Empire State Building, the amount of time it takes in organization and building the foundation before they ever go one level up, it's forever long because they have to build something that's going to stand for hundreds of years. If you're building a business and you think it's going to take 5 minutes, the foundation's too weak. So once there is a wind that comes along, once there's a change in life or a change in the economy, it doesn't have any footing. So it takes time. And think about what I just said, that is a truth, right? There's certain things in life that are truths. So think about health. If you spend a lifetime building your health correctly, it should last you long term. I mean, genetics aside, but generally speaking. So things that take time to build, they're built for longevity for a reason. And if we know that as a truth, then when somebody comes along and goes, I got this idea and we'll be rich in 13 minutes, you got to have bells and whistles going off. That goes against fundamentals of life. Now, can every now and then you hit a grand slam home run? Sure, but that's one out of a million.
Right.
If you're going to build your business and your life, you can't be scratching lottery tickets. And so that goes to, like, I don't know if you've ever heard the conversation, but there's three different mentalities. There's the lottery mentality, thief mentality, and worker mentality. You've heard of this probably?
Yep.
Well, real quick, the thief mentality. I'm going to do something for nothing. That's the scammer. I'm going to find something, do the least amount of work possible, and take. That exists a portion of our society. There's a lottery mentality. I'm going to do a little bit for a lot, right? I'm going to do one social media post and hope to have 1 million people follow me. That's limited. And then the last one is, if I do the required work, I will get the results. Now, when you're in business, guess what? When you're attracting other leaders to your business, other partners, watch for those traits. Because if you're the worker person and you're with a thief guy, oh, they'll rob you blind eventually. Or they'll do something that'll screw up your whole business. Right. What's the other one? You're the worker and you get somebody that's the lottery person. They come and do the littlest amount of work, hoping that you're going to pay them X amount, vast sums of money, or they're going to get. So that's so important, because when you're building a business, fundamentals matter, and understanding that. Like, I always joke around, but it's really true. Put ribs in the microwave. They suck. They got to go in the oven low and slow because it takes time. So if you know that to be the case, right, then somebody says, oh, I got a magic recipe that you can cook ribs in 2 minutes. You're going to go, something's wrong. And then you investigate. You got to have your spider sense up when you're trying to build a business, because you're going to get some of the stupidest ideas and brilliant ideas. You got to filter them now. So you got to know, like the fundamentals matter, and knowing some truths matter.
All right. So what I want to pivot a little bit to, still on the same topic, but I want to speak to your 3 decades, right, of entrepreneurship. And we talked about before, your confidence level kind of was up here from the beginning, but I'm pretty sure over 3 decades, it wasn't always like that. So if you don't mind, could you tell us one story? I'm pretty sure you have multiple, but one story where you felt like giving up, or you felt like, this is the end for me. I am done with entrepreneurship. That's it. Tell us about that moment, and tell us about, how did you overcome it?
I don't know if I ever felt like giving up, but there was okay, I'll tell you, like, so we started the business in 1990. So 2008, the recession comes. And for anybody that's been through COVID was bad on the economy. The recession was a million times worse, because COVID, people were getting government checks. They're hanging out around at home. During the recession, it was like every industry was affected. So it was a lot worse. I'm not trying to make, but I'm just saying, like, so we're in the automotive industry. Being in Miami, the housing market is a disaster, because we're the epicenter of that, or one of the big cities that got hammered. And then, 50% of our business disappears essentially because of the recession. We had money that we just couldn't collect from clients. They went out of business. They owe you money. What are you going to do? So the business that we had built for 18 years starts to crumble. Now, you have to understand, at this point, we had 3 stores. We had 60 employees. Parents are there. Employees that have been there with us for 10 years. And I feel like I'm the captain of the Titanic. I'm like, whatever we do, it's not like, we're not big enough to fix the economy. So how do we kind of hold this together? So I never thought of quitting, but you question like everything you're doing. But this is where I started questioning, can the industry get me what I want? And this is the big, if there's anything I can tell you about somebody that's going to start a business, is what I'm going to say. And I'll use this analogy. Let's say that me and you have to figure out Christmas vacation this year. Like, that's, somebody says to us, Gio, LaShawn, figure this out. So now we're organizing, where do we want to go? Before we rent a car or buy a plane ticket, we got to know where we're going, because the journey, right, needs to be, is secondary to where the destination is. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say we decide Hawaii is the destination. Well, you can't rent a car. There's no bridge to Hawaii. Right. It's a boat or plane, right? It's a whatever. So we got to know the destination before you pick the vehicle. Well, think about what I'm saying to you right now. If I don't know the destination to my life, my real goals and dreams, but I pick my career or my business, you're picking the vehicle before the destination. And guess what happens? A lot of people pick the wrong vehicle. There are right now history teachers that are working every day of their life. They'll never touch the pyramids because they make 47 grand a year, because the vehicle was wrong for what they really wanted.
Right.
So anybody that's going to start a business, before they start the business, what's the goal? What is your life goals? Can that business provide you that? Because if it can't, then there's a flaw. Because we don't just go to work to work. We go to work to pay for our current income and pay for our current lifestyle and also give us the goals and dreams we want.
Right.
So during that moment, I started seeing my goals and dreams get really foggy and disappear. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. Either I got two options. I give up on what I really want or I figure out how to get there. And so that was a moment. So I didn't give up on being an entrepreneur. I didn't give up on my goals and dreams. I needed to find another way to get there. That is a big deal. Like, think about what I just said. Like, a lot of people give up on what they want, and you're like, well, that doesn't even make sense. The only reason why you're on this planet is to accomplish your goals and dreams. And I don't mean like swimming in a pool of singles or dollar bills or hundreds. I mean, if that's your goal, great. But I'm talking about like the thing that moves you as a human, whether it's to help someone else, whether it's to live in a certain house, whether it's to move to a certain community. And if you give those up, they weren't important to you to begin with. So, yeah, so
Sounds
the give
powerful.
part wasn't really, it's just I got to figure it out. I got to scrap and claw how to, some way. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. That was oof. Definitely touched me for sure. Okay, I want to hear what was your biggest win in your 3 decades? What would you say? I'm pretty sure you've had a bunch of wins, but what would you say was your biggest win?
So, kind of like foreshadowing, we lost the business eventually. Just we couldn't hold it together. But I pivoted before. And when I started a new business, it was having my young kids. So at that time, they would have been 8, 9, and 10, 7, 8, 9, something like that. Having them see dad grow a new business, working on things, struggling, studying for licenses, like the beginning stages of it, and having them go. Like, I was studying for an insurance license, and my son goes to me, "Oh, don't tell me you got to get take tests when you're an adult too." And I'm like, "Well, kind of," but I'm like, "Let me explain what I'm doing." And so the biggest win was them seeing a person grind and grow right in front of their eyes. Because, and this is the truth in business, this is the truth in life. If you're not growing, you're dying, period. Now, here's another truth, and some people don't want to hear it. There's no destination in growth. It's not like one day I'm good. And you got to recognize that, because if you think there's a stopping point, you just, it's like, when you have to do, you're in the gym and you got to do 10 reps, you're at 8, you're already like slowing down, you ain't doing 11. But if you realize there's no end to it, then you just go. So there's no end to learning. You just go. So what happened was I'm like, I'm going to show them what it takes to get to the next level, because they need to see that, because you don't learn that at school. But then
Right.
here's the answer to your question. I get a license. I close some deals. I start to build another business. I teach them all along the way. This is what we're doing. This is how much money we made. This is how much we made on this deal. This is how much we spent on this vacation. I hid nothing from them. And the cool part was they didn't think of it as like magic. Oh, you scratched the lottery ticket and made 10 grand or whatever. It's like, oh, I saw what I go, it took years to do this. But so the win was getting a chance to share that with the people that are most important to me. And then their friends, like me and you were talking right before, now that my kids are teenagers, all their friends hang around. Well, I'm talking to them different. I'm having fun with them. I'm trying to stretch their vision, because you don't get that in school, unfortunately, at all,
Yeah.
really.
Thank you for that. And I've always known you as a family man, right? We talked about your kids, around the holidays, and a lot talking entrepreneurial space, is this work-life balance thing, or, not just entrepreneurial space, but all spaces. But do you think that there is a such thing as work-life balance, or how were you able to balance, being a family man and a businessman at the same time?
Okay. I think, and this is controversial because some people, I've seen it argued both sides. I don't think there's balance, at least for a period of time. If you want something elite, like think about Michael Jordan, like that's to the extreme of focus, but he became the greatest ever, or arguably one of the greatest ever, right? You don't do that by having balance across life. So
Right.
when you're going to build a business, your business is a baby. It's an infant that if you take your eyes away from an infant, if you've ever held a baby, they can't live on their own. They can't feed
Right.
themselves. They can't change themselves. When they're brand new, they can't even roll over. So if you think you're going to build a business and look at it once in a while, it'll die. So when you're
Right.
a brand new parent, and anybody that's a parent that's watching this is going to know, their first 4 or 5 months, it's all on all the time, right? That's why when you see brand new parents, they look like they're zombies. Yeah, because they don't sleep. but somehow they don't die. You go, what do you mean? Well, I've heard people say, oh, I need my 8 hours of beauty sleep. Well, when you're a parent, you wait 8 hours, and how do you live? How do you survive? Because you're so much greater than you can imagine. And when the responsibility is so great, a life, you don't have a choice. It's not even an option. But then people start a business or whatever they do in life, they make a declaration. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to run a business. I'm going to write a book. Right. But then they treat it like this part-time. Well, if that was a baby, that baby ain't living. And that's why a lot of people's businesses die, because they don't take it. Because this is what I hear. And again, some people are going to hate me for this. If I dream 7 days a week, I may have to work 7 days a week on those dreams. Not forever, but there's a period of time. Right? Just like when your kid's born, you're on call 7 days a week. Maybe then they get to teenagers and you're like, I don't got to watch them, or, a certain age. I don't have to go and, feed them anymore. But that's a business. It's because we're talking about entrepreneurship. And people think, oh, no, I'm going to work this and the weekends are for family. If you think that in the beginning, there's just not sustainable. Now, what's controversial, because some people go, well, I'm not willing to sacrifice that. What are your goals and dreams? Right. Are you willing to pay the price for what you want? There is a price to pay. Now, I just showed you how to do it in a way that you can have both. Because what if my kids are with me? Now, they can't do the work for me, but what if they're part of this thing, right? Now, maybe they may be too young, but there has to be some give and take, Well, I like to sleep 8 hours. Well, then sleep 5. I can't function on 5. Sleep 6. I can't function on 6. You got to find something. Otherwise, I don't know. And so for me, that managing time, because that's the other thing. Here's the other answer to it. People are the worst at time management, the worst. And I can tell you, I don't know if you've ever done this for yourself, but take a piece of paper. And so here, this is perfect for anybody watching this, because I've done this a million times. Okay, how many hours do I sleep? Write it down. A week. How many hours do I go to work? So we're assuming everybody here let's say they have a full-time job, 40 hours. How many hours do you go to commute? Okay, so how many hours a day or a week do you do self-care, whether it be food, shower, shave, whatever, put that down. Okay, what do you go to the gym? What are your hobbies? Add that up. Now, the average person will get to about 130 hours. 136 is usually like capped out. There's 168 hours in a week. So if the average person's got let's say 138, they got 30 hours in the week unaccounted for. And I'm telling me, how long do you walk the dog? Like, be honest. Well, if you have 30 hours a week, that is a full day plus. Where's 30 hours a week going? TikTok, scrolling, wasted time, like sleeping too long, just no management. So if you said to an entrepreneur, here's 30 hours a week extra. Now watch this one. I'll take my calculator out, because this is important to see how this gets crazy. Here, real quick. 30 hours, right? Times 52 weeks. It's 1,560 hours. Divided by 24 hours is 65 days a year. That's 2 months. If you took anybody and said, here's 2 full months of 24 hours a day to build anything, and they were honest, they could build something. So time management is a big deal. So a lot of work-life balance is mismanagement of time. And then the crazy part is time is the only thing of value in our life. It's the only thing that is really and truly limited. Money's unlimited. We live in the US. Money's unlimited if you do the right things. Time is not. And people mismanage it. So there's 2 answers to that question.
So what would you say is the most misunderstood thing that entrepreneurs have about success?
People that are entrepreneurs, or that like people thinking about becoming entrepreneurs? Like, what? That's the question.
Either or. Those who are already entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, either or. But some people have this idea of what success looks like to them, and some people think it could be success is different for everyone. So what do you think is most misunderstood about success, or even the entrepreneurial journey itself?
That there's an end point to it, like a definitive moment, I guess. So here, I'll give you the cooking analogy. This was going to come up eventually. Some cooking analogy is going to come up, but I think it's a good way to visualize it. And the reason why, by the way, I talk in analogies. So anybody that's in sales or anything like that, it allows people to connect with maybe a topic they're not comfortable with. right? So if you're talking about money, a lot of people will put their arms up because there's a fear or something like that. So if you can talk an analogy, you get them understanding a concept that they maybe don't want to look at directly. So I've been cooking pretty much my whole life. It's a passion. I enjoy it. It's kind of like my peace of mind activity. And about 4 years ago, I remember cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and I remember it was awesome. It was off the charts good. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying, like, I was proud of myself. And I remember sitting down going, oh my God, like things were really good. Now, this is important. I go, I thought I was really good at 37 years old. Man, I'm really good at 47. And this was the click. I go, how good am I going to be in 10 years from now? So think about, how does that relate to an entrepreneur? If you're like, okay, I'm good at 47, or I'm good at this income, or I'm good at this business, you're going to realize very quickly, no, you just fall in love with the journey. Because then I realized, I go, okay, I'm going to have to burn some stuff. I'm going to have to overseason, underseason. I'm going to have to make some mistakes to get to the next level. I'm going to have to make a lot of dishes to be better. Instance, I fell in love with the next 10 years of growth. I'm telling you that because it hit me. I go, oh my God. When you think about business or being a human, I'm like, man, I thought I was good at 50. Now I'm 52 or 51 and a half. I hate to say that, but whatever. Now I think I'm okay. Wow, what am I going to be in 10 more years? Because the goals, the lines disappear. So for an entrepreneur, I think a true person of growth, sometime along the way, has to come to a realization. Okay, there's no destination. And then you fall in love with the journey, because that's different. Because when there's a goal, either you achieve it or you don't. And here's the problem. Up until the moment of achievement, you're a loser. You're losing. There's a loss somewhere. I'm going to make $100,000 a year. I'm only at 90. I'm only at 98. I'm only at 50. Well, you're in essence lost. You've lost that game until you cross over. So it's like this, or I'm going to build a business that has X amount of, let's say you're an influencer, X amount of people. Well, until that moment comes, you're in a deficit. And that mentally will work on you the wrong way. But if you realize, holy cow, my whole goal is to grow every single day. That's measurable. That's exciting. And so I think a real entrepreneur, there'll be a flip somewhere. Or they're like, oh, this is a forever game. Now that's scary to some people because they want finite. That's 9 to 5. Here's the juxtaposition. Work 9 to 5, work 40 hours for 40 years of your life. Now, there's nobody wealthy. Well, okay, nobody is a big term. Very, 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 very few people will ever get rich working for someone else. And almost nobody will get wealthy. And the reason why I say it is wealthy is owning your money and time. And you can't own your time if you're giving it to someone else. Right? So that's finite. I'm going to work for X amount of time and have X amount of dollars. An entrepreneur doesn't think that way. Or they may think that way in the beginning, and then there's that they fall in love with the game.
Right. So far you've talked about 2 of your businesses, but in 30 years, how many total businesses did you have?
Well, if you want to include I don't even have count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like even in the automotive business, we did offshoots. We did like an export company. So I would probably say 10, 12, somewhere around there. If you include the book that I just wrote, a book, you know about it, and you read it actually. You're one of my bigger readers. I appreciate that.
Yes. Be on the lookout for that.
But that's a different business too, because it's a different project. So I would say 10 or 12 different projects at least.
I asked that because it leads me to my next question of, there becomes a point to where some entrepreneurs feel, should I keep going and not give up? Or when should I pivot? Like, am I just being tested? Should I continue to work in my business? You know what I mean? Or when is it time to move on? And this is a question that I get this question so many times from entrepreneurs in our community. At what point? So what advice would you give, those entrepreneurs that don't know, should I pivot or should I just keep investing into my business?
So that's a big one because it's hard because again, your business is a baby, right? You pour it all into it. There's a couple of answers to that. Number one, mentorship would be key. Having somebody go, man, you know what? It's not going to work because of this, this, and this. Or it is going to work, but you're doing it the wrong way. Or it is going to work and just you need more time. That's a couple of reasons. But I would tell you another way to look at it is people misunderstand. Either they don't know business, right? So they have an idea. I want to, like, we'll go to t-shirt. I want to make t-shirts. You understand the concept of t-shirts, but you don't understand the concept of finance. They're two different things. Like there's some amazing chefs, but they don't understand how to run a restaurant, and the restaurant goes under because they don't have a person that understands the numbers. There's a great business person that doesn't have a great business idea. They just need to be partnered with somebody that's got a great product. So
Right.
it's kind of like they have some missing pieces to the game. Nobody's full. And so you got to get with somebody that maybe has those other ones that are going to show you angles you didn't know. Now,
Right.
I'll kind of go in a different direction because I see this a lot too. And I'm sure you see this as well. Not every business is going to survive. And some business ideas are terrible right now, even though it sounds good on paper. Like here, I'll give you one. And this is not to derail anybody, but let's take real estate. Everybody and their mother's a real estate agent right now. So if you go, I want to be a realtor, and you look at the market and you go, I know 37 realtors. Well, then that should tell you your market's going to be diluted because your aunt probably knows 7 people. Then you move to a new state and you're like, I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who knows anybody who knows anybody. Well, that's a good idea. But you have to be honest, because then they will go, well, I know somebody that's making 300 grand as a realtor. And you're like, but he's been doing it for 30 years. He's got a huge book of business. Are you willing to work 30 years for that? Maybe not. Like, so there's an honesty that has to happen and it's hard,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And are you willing to pay the price? So that's the other thing. So it's kind of a weird question, because then it's like, well, it is going to be difficult, and are you willing to pay the price? But some roads lead to cliffs, and you got to talk to somebody that does that. Like I've talked to some people. I'm like, it's not going to make sense to you no matter how good you are. Or in the other case, actually, this isn't a bad idea, but move this way or that way or something like that.
Right.
Right. So I don't know if there's not an exact answer to that, but there's some honesty.
It makes sense though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. This is what we need. We need the honesty, from people who have the experience behind it. Like you've done it. We've talked about in your businesses and you being able to withhold a long career in entrepreneurship through not the Great Depression, but through depression, through COVID,
Put that out to you.
like through a lot, and I talked about a little bit earlier about the advancement of technology and things like that. How did you sustain your success through that?
Okay.
How were you able to pivot through, branding, the advancement of technology, AI, all these things?
So I want to say one thing about the thing we talked about, and I'll jump to that because this is really important too. Mentorship or getting advice from people. Listen to what I'm going to say, because this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. A good person, a good mentor, a person with confidence, they're not going to belittle you. Like somebody that's successful, when they see somebody going for it, game recognizes game. At the same time, you're going to talk to somebody and they're an egomaniac. They're going to hide things from you. Again, this happens a lot in communities when it comes to like investing, right? People go, I know how to do it, but nobody teaches me. Well, that's an ignorant mentality, because it's not if you win, I lose, right? So think about if you've ever been to the gym and there's a person that's just hardcore working out and you go, I got a question. They're usually not annoyed by you because they're like, oh, you're doing it. I know that one piece of information may help you. There's a bunch of ignorant people that are around that will hide everything. That's not a mentor. You need to check your community for that. And that's kind of why me and you were together, because we're sharing information, because anybody that watches this can win. It doesn't affect us. It actually amplifies us, because if they win and they come to me and they go, Gio, you said one thing. I'm like, oh my God. Well, then that betters me. And I'm going to say, well, wait a second, what book are you reading right now? And so there's this give and take. That is such a key. People will get advice from the wrong people, and you'll know it by the way it comes to you. Either it's just held back of information. That's not how entrepreneurship, that's not how mentorship works. Okay. I wanted to get that out there because I've seen it. You've seen it so much.
So many times.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a realtor like, I got a system and I'm not going to teach you one thing. And you're like, you're in 4 states away. It's not going to affect this person. That's an ego thing. And that also tells you they probably don't know half of what they think they know. They just don't want to expose themselves. All right. When it comes to technology, man, right now, so up until this moment, technology grew at a speed that was somewhat accessible and understandable. AI is changing the game so quick that people are going to miss this boat pretty dramatically. So I'm going to kind of answer this question in 2 different ways. You have to be able to adopt technology because of, number one, it makes you more efficient, clearly, the right technology. Like think about, I was in the age where we didn't have computers in business. So we were handwriting notes or handwriting receipts to then having a computer that does more of the work, inventory, and all that. So you use the evolution of things. I'm young enough to remember before cell phones, we had beepers. Beepers work better to communicate than not, but it is not the same as me calling you right now, and then even better, me calling you on video call. Like, so there's an evolution that you have to follow, right? So, and that's another thing. What are people using? Like, and then if you see something that nobody's using and you understand your business well enough, well, can that really accelerate? This is where AI comes in. AI is growing, and so you have to understand how things grow exponentially. A snowball, as it compounds, the bigger it is, bigger it gets. Well, the speed of technology is happening at such a rapid rate that there's technology today that will be obsolete or not used in 2 or 3 years. How's that possible? It's just happening quickly. So you kind of got to know your business. You got to look around, and you got to hang around people that are in that game.
Right.
Because so I joined a networking community, and one of the guys is like an AI guru, and I'm just listening to him, going, "Oh my god, I don't even know half of this." So I did a one-on-one with him. I go, "Hey, his name is Wazir." I go, "Wazir, can you explain to me?" And as he's talking, I'm like, "Oh my god, I could see this and this." Obviously, knowing your craft, and then seeing how this tool could be used or not used, but so being around professionals. This goes to what you're building, networking. You're not going to know it all. And the more you communicate with other people, you may get an idea from a doctor, and you're in real estate, and you're going to go, wow, I can see how that works. How they're scheduling, like, I'm just making this up, but how they're scheduling their calls would make sense to me, and how I schedule my calls. There's a lot of ignorant people that are like, I got it. They put blinders on, and they're like, no, 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 no. There's so much knowledge, and from different careers and fields. So technology, and this is what I would say about AI specifically. AI right now is the single greatest assistant you can ever have. Assistant is a big deal. Why? Well, go back to cooking. Yeah, I love cooking. So when I'm cooking, I may ask AI, what spice what can I replace, because I don't have this in my kitchen. But I know, because I'm good at cooking already, I can use it as an assistant. What a lot of people do is they're going to go, I'm going to write a book. I have 3 sentences. Let AI do it. But if you've never written a book, or you don't understand language, you can't read that thing and then see where the flaw's at. But if you're good at something, and then you ask AI to supplement that, hey, give me a report on this or that, it's the greatest assistant right now ever at this moment in time. It's going to do all the things, but like, I used it the other day for cooking. It was amazing, because I was like, I have an idea. I don't know if it's possible. Can I do this? And it was like, oh, and then it said, like, gave me one thing. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. So it's like me talking to an assistant that has some skills, but I could understand that language. There's people that want to lean on AI to do everything, but they don't even understand the business that they're in. So they can't even see the flaw in that, because AI is not 100% right. It should just course correct you, but not give you a complete roadmap. Right now, anyway. Things will change. Yeah.
Completely agree. All right. So what is Gio working on today? What's next for Gio? I know you have a lot of experience, but what's next?
Right now, I mean, like this week, this moment, I'm working on publishing a book. So I wrote a fiction book, not a nonfiction book. Everybody thinks I wrote a book about business. No, and I think part of me is like, especially in business, like, there's a creative piece that I have that I enjoy creating. And I had this idea for a book. I decided to write it. I wrote it. Go back to time management. So listen, this is true. I wrote a book from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., January to March. I wrote a book on my fingers, on my phone, with my 2 thumbs, from 11 to 1. Why? Well, that's when the kids are asleep. My wife's asleep. The world is quiet. Nobody's sending me emails. And so people go, well, how'd you go to bed so late? It's just because I wanted to do it. Like, that was my goal. So now I'm on the process of publishing it. So I have a couple publishers looking at it. So that's it's something new. I've never done it before. I've had to talk to a lot of people. I've met people through networking that are in the world of books and literature. So I'm kind of learning that. And that's part of it. I have another business that I run, that helps people with basically, money and finance. So I have that business that I'm building. That's just a constant thing. And just being a part of the community, and just growing as a human, being a better dad every day, trying to be a better husband, and learn, the art of communication. If anybody has teenagers, is a whole other game. So yeah, I think really what I'm working on is growing as a person.
That's amazing. I'm always in your corner.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you need from me, I always support you. Now, before we close out, and we talked a lot about mentorship, right? I want you to tell our audience what is the one or the best advice that you've either received or given about entrepreneurship.
It's funny because since I was 16, I've always been self-employed on this side of it. So I never really like some of the questions that people have going into it from some other career didn't they don't really occur to me, like the work-life balance kind of deal, or sometimes working over. I like you don't really clock in and clock out in a business. I would say I'm trying to think of something I heard from the outside. It'll probably come to me, but I would say this one thing I always think about when you work for somebody else, the pressure comes from the outside, right? It's the deadlines and somebody else's ideas and all that kind of stuff. When you work from yourself, the pressure comes from the inside. There's going to be pressure, but it's a different type of pressure. It's also why the wins are bigger when you're an entrepreneur because you put something else into it that doesn't exist in other businesses. You have your blood, sweat, DNA in these ideas. So when you win, it's like when somebody wins in the Super Bowl, you go, why is this guy crying? Because of all the effort and work put into it. It's that release of emotion that you can't get from, a typical 9 to 5. I'm just saying that this is the reality. God, I'm trying to think of advice. Like I'm at a blank right now.
You've given a lot. You've given a lot. And I think that's enough. You know what I mean? Well, for today. But you've given so much. You've been straight, honest, blunt, a wealth of knowledge and advice during this podcast that I thank you for. And also the advice that you've given our community. You've done multiple master classes, you are very active.
I would say, like, if anybody wants it, like, I mean, I say honesty, but like, if anybody wants genuine conversation about business, I'm always here for it because I learn as much as I'm giving. I guess, you know what? I know the answer to your question. It kind of hit me now. I heard this from a networking event from a friend of mine, and he said it to me very briefly, and I've kind of thought about and expanded upon it. And I think it's probably the greatest bookend because when we connected, we talked about this idea, and it's been how our relationship's grown. I heard this. You want to live your life as a plus, a minus, and an equal. So what is a plus? A plus means you're mentoring somebody. Now, this is important. You could be a parent to a child. You could be maybe you're great at doing makeup and you're just mentoring your sister or your friends, or like you can mentor somebody. You know something that somebody doesn't know. So your hand is out going, I got you. What's the minus? You're being mentored by somebody because there's a humbleness going, I don't know everything yet. So we should be that way. If you're a parent, maybe your parents are your mentors and they're teaching you how to be a parent to your kid or in business, right? So think about it. You got your hand out going, I got you, and you got your hand open, go, okay, tell me what's the next thing I don't know. And then what's an equal? You're around people that are in the game you're playing. So I go back to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was a plus to all the rookies. Hey, this is what it's like. Here's how to handle the media. Here's what to do in the locker room. But he's a minus to who? His coaches, because his coaches are looking at the game from different angles. Oh, you're doing this. You're dipping your shoulder. They're giving him advice. And then what's an equal? The players on the court, because the speed of the game is different. So they're going to have a different relationship. So how does this relate to our whole conversation? Be a mentor to somebody. Be humble enough and genuine enough and have integrity to go, I can help somebody, even if it's a book, telling them a book to read. Be humble enough to know I don't know everything yet. I got to find somebody that's a little bit farther along the journey, but then being around a core of people that are going for it. Because if you're around people that are not entrepreneurs or business owners, they can't give you the right advice. If you live your life with those 3 principles. So when I heard that, I'm like, I honestly think about this all the time. Yeah. So that's probably one of the best things I've ever heard.
Thank you for that. That was great advice. And I'll be sure to link a way for everyone who's listening to contact Gio so that everybody will be able to contact you when they're able. So Gio, I thank you for your honesty today. Thank you for trusting this space with your story. I know this conversation will resonate deeply with the people who are navigating and, their own turning points. So I appreciate that. For everyone who's listening or watching, thank you for tuning into CEO Conversations by ENG. We will see you in the next episode.
Thank you.